So we're now going to talk about upbeats in sheet music. Now I have actually mentioned the term upbeat in this course already when I was explaining downbeats and upbeats in the pulse of a piece of music when you're clapping or tapping your foot. This is actually different. An upbeat on sheet music is a tool that the composer uses when he's arranging the music. So it is something you need to understand. Let's take a look at what it means. So we did touch on the upbeat a bit in the last lesson, but I'm going to explain it to you in more detail. So here is a line of music. It's in 4/4 time. So we know that means there are 4 quarter note beats in every bar. And this piece of music sounds like this. Okay, but let's say as the composer that I want to add an upbeat at the beginning of this piece of music. So I'm going to pick a G. I want to play a G first. So all we do is we add that G at the very beginning. And now we have an extra little bar, and that's called an upbeat bar. Now the important thing to remember here is that this is going to be a lightly played beat. If you remember near the beginning of the course, we did talk a bit about upbeats and downbeats, and the first beat of every bar always has an emphasis on it because it's the downbeat. So you always play it just slightly stronger. So the first beat of this piece of music would be this C, and we'd play that with more emphasis. So we must remember to play the upbeat nice and lightly, and we're just leading into that main beat of the C. Now the other thing you need to know about an upbeat is we do take the length of that note from the very end of the piece of music. And what I mean by that is this last bar. Now the last note in our bar is a whole note which is worth 4 beats, but we have to steal some of that duration for our upbeat. So because our upbeat is a quarter note, that means that we're going to have to take its value from the very last bar. So this 4 and at the very end is going to have to be taken, which means I can't use that whole note anymore because that whole note is worth 4 full beats. And I've nicked a beat for my upbeat. So that last note can only be worth 3 beats now. So this is how we would count this piece of music. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And this will be the same whenever you see an upbeat used. So if we made the piece of music a little bit more complicated, so let's use some 8th notes. We count this exactly the same. I've used an 8th note as our upbeat. So that's the last and in the count. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we hit the G on the and. And of course I've had to take that 8th note away from the very last bar. So I can't use a whole beat at the end of the bar. I have to use a beat worth 3.5 beats. Now there isn't actually a note out there worth 3.5 beats, so I've had to tie 2 notes together. So in the very last bar, we've got a half note on the C, which is worth 2 beats, and then that is tied to a dotted quarter note, which is worth 1.5 beats. So together, this note is now worth 3.5 beats, and that last little half beat is now the upbeat at the beginning. So the second line would sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And of course we don't play that last and because we nicked that for the start. So now that you understand what an upbeat is, hopefully you won't get caught out when looking at a piece of sheet music. So many of my students have been tripped up by this. They get to the end of the piece of music and there's not enough notes in the bar and they don't understand why. Or they haven't even noticed the rest of the music. They've just looked at the first bar, realised there's only one half note in it, and then got confused about the time signature. But now you understand. But you need to keep that knowledge. So do look at the daily practice exercises that I have added to this lesson and make sure you give them all a go.